Governance at UUCC, an oversimplified birth story. UUCC was founded in the 1960s by a group of local folks who wanted to be Unitarian Universalists together. They voted to create a religious association and to self-govern. They elected a leadership board to run their tiny association. UUCC didn't stay small. It soon became too complex to run informally, so it voted to have bylaws, to hold annual meetings, and to settle on a mission. It also voted to designate an elected board of trustees as the entity responsible for the church's overall operation and financial management. The board held a sacred responsibility to the congregation to operate it in fulfillment of its mission. Soon, the congregation got bigger, a lot bigger. It needed to hire paid staff. It also began to realize that its board could not also be the manager of the congregation. Think of how bogged down they would get if every time the congregation ran out of printer paper or had a last-minute change in a worship service, the board had to have a discussion and hold a vote. So, the board delegated all the day-to-day decision-making to paid staff and volunteers. That's the executive side of UUCC, which is led by the executive team, consisting of the senior minister and executive director. This change occurred a generation ago in a written document called the Board Staff Linkage, which is still in effect. That doesn't mean that the board's obligation to run the congregation is gone. The buck still stops with the board. To fulfill its responsibilities to the congregation, the board must make sure that the executive is promoting the congregation's mission and values. It does this by developing visionary policies called ends. Ends are how we plan as UUCC to make a difference within individual congregants, among the congregation in relationship, and beyond UUCC in the world. The ends tell the executive team what to strive for, but give the team the freedom to use its energy, creativity, and wisdom to determine the means to fulfill them. To fulfill its responsibility to the congregation, the board monitors how well UUCC is meeting the ends monitoring. This spring and in succeeding years, we will be asking you, the congregation, directly to tell us how you think the congregation is doing. Here is a sample end. It's end number 2. We deepen our Unitarian Universalist identity, teach it to our children, and share it with the world. How successful have we, UUCC, been in accomplishing this end over the past year? You, the congregation, are best able to answer this kind of question out of your collective experience. Well, that's a simplified version of UUCC's birth story from a governance perspective. But Unitarian Universalism is often described as a living tradition, which means that it isn't static. Our bylaws require that we periodically review and update our foundational values and mission. We do this by congregational vote, and from the updated values and mission, the board updates the ends. The last time this happened was in 2023. Like human beings do, our congregation is still growing, improving, and adapting to change. May it always be so.